We'll see. We did have some people who registered, but I don't know if they're going to join us.
Oh, I see it in the corner, streaming live on Facebook.
I don't know. Right, there we are. Oh,
Yep.
I gotta make sure I don't make any weird faces. Hello, everyone on Facebook, if you're watching.
Yep, we're good.
Hey, everybody.
So tonight, I'm Jen DeFranzo. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations. And tonight we have a special guest with us on our Facebook Live, which is Mark Hardie, who's the co-director of our Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. Did I get that right, Mark? Did I say
Yeah, director. There's no co with me.
Oh, director. I apologize.
I wish. You know something I don't know?
And we also have Mike Antonellis, who will be monitoring our chat window and the comment box on Facebook Live for any extra questions for Mark. And tonight we're going to ask Mark anything. And I have a great question to start, Mark.
Awesome.
Hopefully you know the answer. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
I have the answer to that question, yes. So I'm the director of the Entrepreneur Innovation Center at Framingham State University, a very unique resource on campus. We provide co-working to Metro West, which brings entrepreneurs, remote workers, local business professionals here to our facility. And we take advantage of them being here to sort of fuel and create internship opportunities for those students who are studying in our business department, but actually across the campus, because increasingly we get students interested in internships who are in communication arts and geography, English, computer science, etc. So as director, I manage the center itself, which is a business. So we have members, they pay fees to work here. We're a little quiet now because of COVID. And then I run the programming for the center, both curriculum. We have a course that I teach, ENTR 495, Entrepreneurship 495. We do directed study. Invariably each semester, I'll probably have 1 or 2 directed study students. And then that internship program is a very full-fledged program. It keeps me busy. I invite students to come down and inquire about interning, and then I set them up, quite frankly. And our interns often do 2 things. They do project work for our members. We have the Metro West Chamber of Commerce, who's a member here. So we use the chamber to extend out to other businesses in the market. And I sort of set all that up as director and make sure each student has a very good experience, gets exposed to local and small business. And then our students who are studying entrepreneurship really get hands-on with what it takes to bring an idea to market. So that's what I do as director. One last point, I am a career coach. I've been a career coach for quite some time, part-time at 2 local universities, Harvard Business School and MIT, Sloan School of Management. And so I bring that ability and expertise back to the center, and I've been working on some programming for students around career guidance toward, or for those students interested in entrepreneurial path. A little different, not sort of the typical career guidance. There are a number of things you want to be aware of, watch out for, prepare for, should you decide you're going to go and look for work amongst startup companies, young, small companies, where you're interviewing with the founder or the proprietor versus an HR department. So yeah, doing that and keeping our center a robust resource on campus.
So you're not busy at all.
Not at all.
So I have some questions that were either submitted to the alumni office or online as preparation for today's AMA. So I'm going to go through those. And
Great.
Of course, if something comes up, Mike will let us know online, and we'll get them all in hopefully tonight.
Perfect.
So
Excited.
the first one, Mark, if you're ready, I feel like I should do the Jeopardy music. What habits or mindsets have helped make you successful?
I think the mindset that makes me the most successful is this attitude that I have to be nimble professionally in order to be successful. And when I say nimble, I have to at all times be prepared for change in my career, whether I initiate it or it simply happens. So that nimble approach or attitude serves me quite well in the startup world in particular, because startups just aren't guaranteed to succeed. They can be extremely exciting. They can also be pretty chaotic. And you're doing a variety of different things, even though you might have been hired to do something in particular. So I think the mindset that keeps me going and arguably successful is being nimble. I think the one habit I would point to that has allowed me to pursue the career that I am interested in is that I am always at the ready after any interaction to propose the next step. So I really don't wait on other people to get back to me after we've talked, interviewed, bumped into each other, met at some event, conference, etc. I take responsibility for what the next step is, and I often propose with enough detail how that step should be taken. We should work together. That work looks like X, Y, Z. I suggest it include these 3 things. It might be something that we want to consider a contract. It doesn't appear to be full-time work, etc. So my habit is making sure that after any interaction in my career, professional life, I follow up. I own the next step, quite frankly. And my mindset is I got to be nimble.
Thank you. That's great. All right. The next question is, have you ever been fired?
Yes. Of course I have. I don't think you can survive in the information age without just acknowledging that it, in all likelihood, is going to happen. And honestly, I think fired or laid off are the same thing. Essentially, you've been asked to leave the company, not at your request, but for some other reason. I think it's interesting to note that we are an at-will state, and that is a majority across our country. So what that means is that the employee or the employer, without any reason, can sever the employment contract. So you have the same power that your company does. You don't think about it that way, but you'll quit in a heartbeat and not feel shy or worried or, gee, I hope they don't cry, hope they don't get depressed. So, I laugh and I say yes right away because yes, it has happened to me. Nimble, it's going to happen. I expect it. I think some of the experiences that I've had that were the most gut check, really hit home or hit hard, have been the most influential and valuable in helping me just stay prepared, recognize that as much as I can do phenomenal work, great work, sometimes even that doesn't matter. There are any number of scenarios, situations where even though you're working hard and doing really good work, change comes about not because you wanted it to come about. So yeah, have I ever been fired? Yes, I have. Proudly, I'll say.
Happily, yeah.
That question.
So what do you think is the biggest factor that predicts success?
It's hard to point to a biggest factor. I meet plenty of people because I'm a career coach. I get an opportunity to work with individuals. I think one of the things that is a good predictor of success, certainly in career management, moving through roles, interviewing, etc., is essentially a calmness and an understanding of who you are, quite frankly, and an ability to communicate that in any environment. Meaning, some of the best mock interviews I've had have been with candidates who just are very calm and are able to respond. They take direction well, quite frankly. But I think that calmness, that attitude of knowing who you are is a good predictor of success, because I think when you know who you are, you pursue the things that are logical for you given where you're at that time, and are able to communicate very effectively. So as we talk about it, I'm going to get to communication is very important. So calm. Do I communicate really well? Interviewing's hard. Interviewing's hard, networking is hard, change is hard, quite frankly. To leave a comfortable environment, a business, a job, and go do something else can bring about quite a bit of anxiety. Good communicators recognize that they have the responsibility to give others a good sense and an understanding of what they bring to any role or opportunity. And then the conversation ends up being a lot more about what's ahead for you and that company versus what have I done lately, what's in my past. So probably a calmness, I think. Maybe that's an emotional aspect to the individual. Communication, which is a trained skill. We don't all start out as amazing communicators. There are people who talk a lot, but that doesn't mean they're good communicators. And that's also something that, you build up an ability to communicate effectively over time. What I think gets lost in career management and growing professionally is it's not a natural thing to talk about yourself for an hour to a stranger. That's just not a natural thing, and it's hard, and it tends to be they ask questions, I answer. But as you get better and move further into your career and get better as communicators, you learn how to manage a conversation to produce a certain result. That result typically is, I want this person to know as much about me as possible. I'm interested in their company or a particular role, and I have and would like to communicate my ability to fulfill that role or address some of their needs. And that's the conversation that I'd like to have. In interviewing, people don't remember that you answered questions well. They remember that the conversation was comfortable, and then beyond a comfortable conversation, they remembered certain things you said about your ability, what you want to do next, why this company is of interest to you, and take that back to perhaps a meeting with their colleagues or back to HR and say, I really felt like I got to know that individual. I believe they're talented, et cetera. So long way around getting, communication, a calmness, and in fact, just a good understanding of who you are right now, and ultimately who you'd like to be and what it's going to take for you to get there.
Awesome. So Juan is, I'm pointing as if I know where he is on your screens. On my screen, he's over to the right, but Juan Rodriguez, who is one of our former alumni board presidents, but an alum and class of Juan, you can correct me, 78?
Yes, do you have to mention the year?
I have to. Juan may have some questions for you, so.
Yes, a former, a retired middle school principal, and I do a lot of mentoring of leaders. And maybe you can talk a little bit about intentional self-development and self-awareness as far as not develop yourself by chance, but also have a plan on how do you address those strengths and weaknesses. Because as you're saying, you acquire different responsibilities. It requires an expansion of the skill set. So how does that develop confidence also in yourself? So maybe it's about self-development, self-awareness to develop confidence to be able then to address the challenges of a new position.
Yeah, I think I would describe that as career management as opposed to self-development. We all need to manage our careers, lest you sort of wander and find yourself either stuck or just not where you thought you'd end up. So you have to manage your career increasingly. And I think this is particularly true of the information age. So we're well into it now. We don't really talk about it as much, but the overwhelming majority of us work in information-centric jobs. We're paid to think, to communicate, to articulate, to write. And what comes with that is the responsibility to train and retrain and keep up with some of the newer tools that now are part of the information age. You could easily go back and historically look at the industrial age or agrarian economies and see that as tools and technology evolved, farmers and laborers and machinists all also had to evolve, right? You had to pick up new skills. So to your point about self-development, I would argue that's career management, and you want to be actively managing your career as soon as possible, quite frankly. I think young college graduates are early on and being hired on potential. So perhaps that's your first opportunity to just really get your feet on the ground and go to work and then begin to take a career management stance. I think self-awareness comes from the act of managing your career and realizing there are things you like and things you don't like to do professionally. And over time, you move more toward the things you like and quite frankly, move away from or just acknowledge that there are things you don't like that you don't want to do anymore. I always find it interesting to see mid-late career resumes with just a laundry list of skills. That's fantastic. You can do so many things. Now tell me, of those 30 odd skills, which 5 or 6 do you want to do? Do you want to use right now in your next job? So self-awareness is the recognition that I've done a number of things in my career. I've developed strengths and skills that I find compelling, and I want to use those skills more. I might want to direct them toward different subjects, industries, etc. But I know what I'm good at. I know what skills I have that are transferable. And now when I get into conversation, when I get into interviews, I'm able to articulate that quite well. When you say self-awareness, people should understand that the type of question that gets at self-awareness is called a behavioral question. Okay, you can Google it. You can find examples of behavioral questions online. But basically, a behavioral question is one that asks you to look into your past, into your career, and describe the experiences that you had that changed you in some way, how they changed you. And a good answer typically highlights the fact that that change is now part of you and is something that is your makeup, is either a skill or is a an approach, an understanding, etc. You know, self-awareness is being able to acknowledge. You heard me at the outset. Jennifer said, "Have you ever been fired?" And I laughed and said, "Yes," right away. That doesn't bother me. I am not just going to succeed at every single thing I do, and I'm not going to eventually, get the promotion at every single job I take. Quite frankly, my career path and choice of entrepreneurship is super risky. So back to self-awareness, I know those things. I know that what gets me excited about any opportunity is typically new things a company is doing that they've never done before, that I capture or describe as a growth initiative in a company. And I like working on those things. I don't need to be directed. I'm very self-directed. I'm very technical. I understand technology well. I've started businesses. I've joined young businesses. I understand budgeting for the most part. I mean, there are tools I bring to companies who are doing these growth initiatives that I think are sound and put me in a good position to be of value to that organization, that company. Self-awareness is being able to, like I said earlier, communicate that effectively and not being shy about describing how you acquired certain skills, how that changed you or influences the way you think, and then going forward and talking with companies, with people in your network about what's ahead for you, given where you're at right now. I often describe for my career coaching, in my career coaching work, this idea of offense versus defense. Defense is talking a lot about your past as a way to defend that you have talent. Offense is talking about what you want to do next, given the skill set that you have, and what's ahead for this particular company or organization. What needs do they have? What challenges do they face? And do those line up? I want to do some things that look a lot like the challenges that you face or the needs you have. I enjoy doing that type of work. Now let's keep talking and figure out how perhaps we can get together, do something. Maybe it becomes a job, a contract, et cetera, but we can move forward, both happy for the opportunity. Make sense?
I'm soaking it all up. Thank you. As you're talking, I'm very curious about you as a thinker. What type of thinker are you? And because that's always something that I was curious whenever I conducted any interviews is, what kind of thinker are you? It is maybe if you don't mind sharing some examples of how do you arrive at understanding yourself as the type of thinker that you are, because we all operate differently, and how do you match up then to whatever career path that you like to follow?
So I can describe what kind of thinker I am by my high school experience as an athlete, and how much that influences my approach to any challenge. So I was a high school track and field cross country runner. It required discipline. You have to train in order to show up and race. So I understand the requirement for training, quite frankly, and I think that way. Anything that I approach, I ask myself, is there training that I need? Is there an ability level that I need to work on to ascend, to be prepared? But also, I think one of the things that was profound for me was that I got very used to the nervousness and the anxiety that comes with competing, and find myself, ready for that professionally. I speak a lot. I speak to large audiences quite a bit. I've been in ballrooms. I've been on television, and I'm always crazy nervous beforehand. But what I remember from high school was that as nervous as I am when I've trained and I've done the work ahead of time, those nerves all but evaporate once things get going, because it's sort of, I click on and I perform because I'm practiced at it. So to your question about what kind of thinker I am, I'm a confident individual. I think that with preparation, I'll do well. I know I won't win everything because I didn't win everything in high school. And I told Jennifer a minute ago, I've been fired. So clearly I didn't win that one. But as somebody with a confidence born out of preparation, I approach a variety of different environments and challenges and interactions with an optimism that I'm ready for this. One of the things I tell anyone I work with in career coaching is my role as a career coach is to get you ready, is to get you to a point where you are ready and comfortable to go about the task of searching for another job, if that's what it is, or getting out and networking more because you do need to build your professional network, or for that matter, just to go into a new role with the confidence and the readiness that you can perform well, but also, like I mentioned earlier, be nimble, be prepared for change that comes at you, not be too entrenched. As somebody who has been both very successful and has felt the sting of loss, I go into environments recognizing that, quite frankly, and participating in team sports, I recognize that it's not all about me. I really have to approach the environment, the discussion, the brainstorm with an ear and an eye toward the contributions of others, and a rigor and a discipline around what's being said, what we're talking about, what I bring to it. I can tell you quite honestly, over the last decade of career coaching, which is the time span that I've been a professional career coach at a couple of graduate schools, I've learned to listen a lot better, and that's been of tremendous help. Just learning how to listen and take in information and sort of spin it around like a Rubik's cube in your head and not talk until all the sides are uniform color, so to speak. I think that analogy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm just going to do a check-in in case you're just joining us on Facebook or any other place where you're finding this live broadcast. This is Mark Hardie. He is the director of our Entrepreneur and Innovation Center at Framingham State. And we're talking with him tonight. Ask me anything. So anything is on the table for Mark Hardie. And we have Mike Antonellis, who is also sitting up here. He's taking a look at our social media. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat boxes or put them on the comment sections, and Mike will grab those for us. And then Juan was just asking some questions for Mark. So I've got a few others, unless you have more, Juan.
Oh, I'll wait for yours and then I'll come back with a couple more because I'm really curious, Mark. Thank you for sharing all of those insights.
So I've got another one, Mark. And I feel like you're going to think that I have something going on here. But my next question is, how do you deal with failure?
I don't think you have anything going on, but that's a very, very good question. And I talked a little bit about, yes, I'd been fired and I'd experienced the highs of success and the lows of loss in the competitive realm. For me, failure usually is a wealth of information worth delving into and understanding. I expect that it will happen. I don't try, but I expect that even with a very good effort, myself or my team, my organization might not be successful. So I started a company in '99. I left a very good role at Forrester Research to launch a company because I felt like the time was right and I had a good idea. The success of that, I raised $3.2 million in about 6 months. So that was a tremendous sort of endorsement, pat on the back kind of. And so I felt great about that. I built a small company around an innovative technology idea that I'd come up with. And we worked really hard and we were busy with the task of sort of bringing that technology to market. It was in the entertainment space, music in particular, working with partners in retail. And we were on the cusp of some big deals that we had planned to sign. Our technology was ready to bring to market. And I was certainly anticipating another round of investment with our current investor, and 9/11 happened. And all of a sudden, a lot of things slowed to a stop, much like the pandemic did most recently, but it essentially put the brakes on my business. And while not technically a failure, I had to shut a business down and let go 26 people, wind down all that we had wound up, and walk away from that. And I kid you not, I genuinely felt like a failure because for about all the way into, so 9/11, all the way into 2002, I spent the time shutting down a company and feeling pretty much every day like a failure, quite frankly. And there were bigger issues at play, but honestly, the person who gets laid off because the economy has collapsed doesn't feel like I'm great at everything I do. No, they feel like they got laid off, and that's crushing. The short answer to, how do I deal with failure is to expect it, or to at least acknowledge it's possible. And like my earlier nimble comment is to, over the course of any activity, project, initiative, startup, quite frankly, keep an eye out for any telltale signs that things are happening that could ultimately lead to failure. And then just keep in mind that, it is possible. And so just don't be surprised. Just don't take it as something that is inherently your own, inability or some, critique of who you are professionally that is insurmountable, but more the nature of business is that some fail. If you endeavor to launch them from scratch, quite frankly, there's a extremely high likelihood that that effort will not succeed, might not succeed in the way you wanted it to, and simply be prepared for that. It doesn't, you saw me respond again to your fired commercial. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't try, but it's certainly not something that, crushes me to the core. I do, I don't like it. I don't want to sound like I don't care. I don't like it at all. So I work really hard not to fail, much like the athlete that I was in high school. I go to races to try to win them. And it's hard for me to not do that. And when I don't do that, whether it's racing or my professional career, I look back at what I did for prep, and try to figure out how to get it right the next time.
So Juan asked another question. I'm going to put that one on hold, Juan, because I think we might answer it coming up. So I think this next question, Mark, talks a little bit about some of the business skills that people might have questions with. So how do you develop key partnerships?
How do you develop key partnerships? So I teach using something called the business model canvas, and key partnerships is part of that. Literally, there are 9 components to the business model canvas. There are 3 keys: key partnerships, key activities, and key resources. When I talk to my students about their startup ideas, I hammer home, I regale them, I do whatever I can to get them to understand you're not going it alone. You're just not. You are going to have to come to grips with the concept, the idea that there are other businesses and other aspects to the economy that you operate in that require that you partner with others. Now, how do you forge those partnerships? How do you make them happen? I think the first task is just identifying that they're out there, who they are, sorting through or creating that list of partners so that at least you have a direction to go in. I talked a little bit earlier about when you asked about key measures for success or indicators for success. You got to be a good communicator. So your partners would, in all likelihood, want to partner with you, but need information, and you've got to be able to communicate that. So I think partnerships from a business standpoint, certainly from a startup standpoint, require that you identify them early on before you've gone out to see anybody, figure out sort of who in your economy, in your market, in your region, et cetera, could be instrumental in your success. And then two, communicate to them, put together material that you need to talk about your business, be as articulate as you can about why the partnership in your mind is a smart idea, will work, and then take the initiative. I talked a little bit more about, always doing the follow-up, owning the next step, going out and talking to them, and then ushering that conversation along to some logical end. It's funny, I often hear in my career coaching, gee, when should I get back to this person, this company, et cetera? I say to them, you should not be sitting at home waiting for your phone to ring. You really should be proactive in managing that interaction to some logical conclusion. Either there's opportunity and interest there and the discussion continues, or at this time there isn't, that's fine, end it, move on to something else. So partnerships are identifying, communicating, and following through to make those happen.
Okay. Here's one. How can you minimize the unknowns in business?
You can. You can do quite a bit of work to prepare for an event that you didn't expect, an unknown, by properly resourcing, by recognizing that you can't go it alone, by creating process and repeatable process that can scale. People don't scale. More people is not how companies grow. Companies grow by creating repeatable processes that individuals can do, and increasingly it takes less and less and less talent to do the same thing that perhaps you might have been doing early on. So you're trying to get to the point where you're managing your business well in terms of time, in terms of resources, such that when an unknown occurs, the shock to the company is not one that is detrimental, is a death blow, so to speak. But honestly, I think any entrepreneur should, I won't say relish, but just recognize that you can't cover all the unknowns that are out there. There was absolutely no way I could have known 9/11 was going to happen while I'm rolling along with $3 million in the bank, 26 people in my company. We had a West Coast and an East Coast, West Coast and East Coast retail groups who were ready to sign on the dotted line and take our technology. So, you as a professional need to simply understand that they're out there and do everything you can to prepare. And some of them, in my case, some of them might in fact be pretty significant. But I felt like throughout all of the time up until that point, we were ready for a lot of things that we didn't expect and were able to succeed against some of those unknowns.
So what indicators are angel investors looking for?
So first, let's talk about where angels sit amongst the investment spectrum, quite frankly. An angel investor is likely the earliest investment you will get. That individual typically, which is why he or she is called an angel, that individual is prepared to invest usually a small amount of money relative to what's available, 5 figures, 20,000, 50,000, maybe a little bit more, in an idea and a person with an idea. So angel investors are at such an early stage that usually they're talking to somebody who has an idea, maybe a prototype or at least and information to showcase the concept in greater detail. But an angel investor arguably is at the very riskiest end of the investment spectrum, prepared to invest in an individual, a team, and an idea that seems well thought out, well articulated, perhaps even prototyped. Angel investors come before seed investors. Usually seed investors are organizations, companies that invest money, and then investment rounds come after seed. So you have an A round investor, and A, B, C, and D are usually proper SEC certified, investors who that's what they do for their work, is they invest in companies. Your angel investor, in all likelihood, is not a professional investor, although they've matured a bit of late, and there are angel syndicates now, groups of angels that get together so that they can put more money to work and de-risk their investing. Angel investors look for well thought out ideas that stand up to inquiry, to questioning, to logical questions, to hard questions. All the questions don't have answers, but you've got to be prepared to have that discussion. Angel investors expect that entrepreneur brings a degree of talent unique to that idea, brings a degree of talent that would indicate this individual is prepared to launch a company, or this team with their mix of skills is sound enough to move forward with this small investment and get a little bit further along with their idea, perhaps further into prototype, piloting the service, or even offering the service or offering the product in its first iteration, in its first form, a widget that you can literally sell, a service that you can offer to your first customers, etc. But angel investors, I would argue, are at the risky end of the investment spectrum, looking for bright minds with bright ideas that they can vet through the Q&A process, pitch to me and let me ask you questions. And then all angel investors want to know, how much do you need? It's called an ask. How much money are you asking investors for? And that ask, that amount of money that you need, it's rare that the angel can cover it all, but they want to know how much you need so that they can determine how much they're prepared to invest will move you toward or get you toward a subsequent seed round where you'll talk to other investors who perhaps bring more capital to the table. Now that's not the Bible. There are varieties of angels now. Like I said, there are syndicates. They try to de-risk investment by sharing the investment risk with other investors. With so much money in the market these days, you see angel investors investing more than 5 figures, sometimes 6 figures, or pooling their investment capital to invest up to 7 figures. I raised capital. When I raised capital back in 99, 2000, it was common for angel investors to operate in that tens of thousands range, just ahead of something you might bootstrap with your own money or family and friends. And bootstrapping is, I got a gift from a long lost uncle, or I saved a little bit of money and I've got $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, and I'm going to put that into this idea and pay some rent, buy some materials, create, a prototype online service, etc. Make sense?
Well, yeah, I think you already kind of started answering the next question, which was, how do you get funded, or how did you get funded, and what creative strategies did you use to execute with minimal cash flow?
There's so many ways to be creative, so I'll stay away from that long-winded conversation about being creative. So to raise capital is to come to the conclusion that the business that you are starting requires more money than you have, and you are willing, or more money than you can put to it to get to cash flow, and you are willing to take on other owners of that business. angel investors, seed investors, A-round investors take an ownership stake in your business. That's why it's called equity, okay? It's not a loan. A bank will loan you money and ask you to pay them back, and they have no claims to your business unless you fail to pay the loan back. It's funny, I remember talking to a professor here at Framingham State who said, my son is involved in this business and he'd like us to loan him some money, and it's all of our savings. What do you think, Mark? And I told her, you're not loaning him money. You're making an equity investment because he's not thinking about paying you back over any time. You're not going to write a note and charge him an interest rate. To get to investors, there are a lot of opportunities to do that now. It's much more commonplace. You go to a pitch competition. Some of these accelerators and incubators like Y Combinator and Techstars or Cambridge Innovation Center. The different universities often have their own pitch competitions. We here at Framingham State don't have that yet. We've been working on it, quite frankly. And we have an incubator, we just don't have a pitch competition. So all of you with ideas, please come and let me help you. But we have some illustrious alums who are interested in hearing those pitches, quite frankly. And you see more and more public sector organizations and opportunities to raise capital. E4 All comes to mind in Central Mass. I'm getting ready to judge their competition. But there are places, Mass Challenge, there are places where, you know, you can step up in front of an audience, present your idea, and there are investors in that audience who will follow up with you and want to know more to come to some conclusion as to whether or not your idea, your team is investment worthy.
Okay, so I've got the last, at least for me, I don't know if there's anything else out there, but the last of my business questions here. How do you know when to hire a freelancer or additional staff?
It pretty much starts right away because you can't do everything. So for those of you who have come up with ideas and are trying to bring those ideas to market to create companies, the sooner you come to grips with the limits of your own ability, the sooner you'll realize, okay, I've got to bring somebody else on board to help me, to work with me. And you use the term hire. It often might not look like that. It might be co-found and help me and take an equity stake, or I'm going to share with you ownership in this idea. But pretty early on, you're going to need to sort of scratch your head and figure out how do I hire a designer for my mobile app? How do I bring on board someone who's smarter at marketing or someone who's better at sales and business development than myself? And that's pretty much right at the outset. I started a company. I left Forrester Research to start that company in the fall. I was already talking to individuals that I plan to hire before I even quit my day job. I didn't wait. I really wanted to be sure that once I made the decision to quit my day job and put all of my energy and effort into this startup company, that I quickly brought resources on board who could help me with some of the challenges that this company would face. We needed to develop software. We needed to build a physical thing. We needed to establish partnerships in the entertainment industry. We needed to start communicating out to the market that we were coming to market to provide a service, and who would we partner with, how that service might complement their existing business. So while you're sketching, doing a pitch deck, drawing or writing about your idea, you should also be thinking of, again, key resources. Who do I need? What other people can help me with this business? And at what point will I have something that I can offer to them? I'll give you a reason why I say something. My marketing person, when I started my business, I met him out in California, a referral of a friend. We sat and talked at breakfast at length, and we had another couple of conversations over the phone. And he said to me, I'm willing to come east, put myself up, and work for free to help you get going. And I said to him, you won't be working for free. I'm willing to give you an equity stake in the company. With regard to him, it was 5% of the company. Now, at that time, the company was an idea and it had yet to be valued, but he had 5% stake in this idea that I was trying to bring to market. my head of product development, who I talked to before I quit my day job, also said to me, I'm willing to quit my day job to come join you, but I need 3 months salary as a cushion in case this all blows up and my wife would not be happy if I don't have an income. So that second head of product development didn't come on board until I was able to didn't come on board full time. He was willing to talk to me and give me ideas, etc., but didn't quit his day job. And then he came on board when I was able to raise seed capital, 75K, the bulk of which literally was put into the bank and shown to him as a checking account with money in it, that in the event this doesn't work, I have your 3 months of, compensation. That was all back of the envelope stuff. We could have easily put a more sophisticated contract in place, but I think, the entrepreneurs out there need to understand that, all the way back to our earlier point, you got to get creative. A marketing guy's going to move from Santa Monica, California, crash in Boston and work with me, without receiving a paycheck. My product person is going to quit his job if I can commit 3 months of salary to him. That amounted to a certain amount of that was a certain amount of money. Got to get creative. You got to figure out ways in which to pull your team together, get them on board, and lead them so that you can really make this happen. It's not going to happen on its own. It's not going to be something that happens right away. There'll be stumbling blocks, roadblocks, delays that perhaps you didn't expect. And so some of your unknowns, like you're talking about, you got to be ready. And there's no time like the present to think about bringing people on.
So I have a question here, which is, how do you take suggestions or criticisms to help you grow when you may not be ready to receive those suggestions or criticisms?
That is just a challenging thing. There's no magic to it. I think when I talked about being nimble earlier, I'm of nimble mind, which means that I know I can't do everything. By knowing I can't do everything, that also leads me to think I might do some stuff poorly, which exposes me to criticism, quite frankly. I think it's hard. I believe over time you get a little bit better at it, perhaps because it happens more often. But when you acknowledge, again, to Juan's point, a bit of self-awareness, that you have a set of skills, strong skills that you're comfortable with, and some things that you're not comfortable with or just aren't your skills, you recognize that, okay, I'm likely to be criticized for what I'm able to do not so well, really well. You might be criticized for something you think you're great at. And that just sort of comes with the territory. Over time, those individuals who've interviewed quite a bit and have tackled some of those behavioral questions, that's what behavioral questions try to get at, is whether you're the type of individual who can acknowledge, I won't say failure, but lack of success, or something that didn't rise to what the expectation was. And then how do you deal with that? How do you respond to others who look at what you've done and want to critique it, I guess. So yeah, maybe a few gray hairs helps.
All right, I have one more, which kind of might fit in there, which is, how do you know when to move on from an idea?
How do you know when to move on? Well, you're talking to somebody who literally has 30 or 40 of them over the last decade or two, and I've not moved on from any of them. I don't think it's a move on from it. Say that again?
So we found your weakness.
Yes, I might have a weakness that I won't let go of an idea. I don't think you move on from an idea as much as you acknowledge that it isn't something that you're going to move forward with for a variety of reasons at this time. I think it's very helpful to hang on to ideas, if only to see how your thought process evolves over time with each new idea and how you approach it, and what you do with it versus what you did with a much earlier idea. You know, I can go back to ideas that I'd come up with, gosh, before I started my own business, but also in the interim, a number of things that I wanted to get going. And I revisit them quite a bit, if only just to see why I thought the way I did at that time, elements of what I wrote down or the approaches, and whether or not I've grown since then, I've learned more since then. So I think the short answer is you're not moving off an idea, you're just making the choice not to move forward. And if you're like me, and I would encourage you to be like me, you know, don't lose track of it. Don't lose all the work that you did around that idea. I use an online tool called Google Keep. It's one of Google's cloud platform of a suite of software, but you can use any note-taking tool. I like Google Keep because it's online, it's on my phone, it's on my device, it's on a browser, so I can get to it at any time. And I'm constantly putting new ideas up there, and then I'm able to actually label them. So my ideas are all labeled with startup, and so I can just see my ideas in a certain view. Yes, I'm a geek. Thank you. Yeah, think of it that way. Think of it as not moving off an idea, simply moving on from an idea, and never abandoning it as much as just archive it in the parlance of email and online services, etc. Archive those ideas. You'll want to look back at them later.
All right. Well, that's all I have for pre-submitted questions. Does
Cool, this is fun.
Juan have anything, or Mike, any questions? I think we have time for like one more.
Go ahead, Juan.
Great, Mike.
Juan, you're muted. Hold on.
I should know that, sorry. My curiosity is, how do you seek other people to help you grow? And I'm still going into that self-development, because then you can venture out into, you know, how do you make your ideas, you know, reality? So how do you calculate who to seek advice from in terms of people who you admire, people who have experience, etc., so then he can help you make decisions?
Yeah, so two parts to that, and I'll tackle them as I understand the question. How do you seek people out? And you mentioned taking advice. Advice has come to me from the oddest directions, unexpected, and been profound in my life. And so I've long given up on, I'm able to choose where to get my advice from. I got advice to go to business school at a time in my career where I was doing really well. I was a techie, I was a software developer, things were going great. I was moving up, and I had a dinner with an old college friend, and his dad literally said to me, "You're at a stage and a time when it might be smart for you to think of business school." But to that point, I was not thinking about it at all. And I took that to heart. I applied to MIT Sloan School and I got in. So advice can come from anywhere. And so I don't know that there's a magic to picking who you get it from. A lot of people will give you advice. I think it's smart to take it and spend time with it, and not just assume that it's good or bad, but it definitely needs to be thought about. Building your network and bringing people close to you is a career-long effort. It isn't something that 1 week you're going to go out and build your network and have 20, 30, 40 odd people. LinkedIn is something that helps now. I certainly am old enough to have lived when there was no LinkedIn. It makes it a little bit easier to connect and reconnect with people. It makes it easier to find who's around you professionally, or is for some affinity reason someone you might want to connect with. I take it upon myself to, like I said earlier, to follow up and talk to individuals who have been introduced to me and get that to some logical conclusions. I'll give you an example. I had a call this morning. We're a co-working space here, and I saw a great Facebook post about a co-working space out in Western Mass in Holyoke, where I grew up. And it was posted by one of my high school friends. And so I wrote to my high school friend, hey, can you connect me to this person? And another high school classmate said, oh, I know him, I'll connect you. This is all this morning. I literally had a thread of messages in Facebook, and the individual at that co-working space called me out of the blue about 30 minutes to 45 minutes after that messaging back and forth happened. We had a tremendous conversation for about 45 minutes. I'm going to go visit him probably toward the end of the month. But it's this recognition that building your network and introducing yourself and bringing people into that network requires that you be open to do it, to recognize that it's a long-standing thing you have to do, you have to keep at it. Networking, I think, has a bad rap, has a weird definition. We think, oh, I go to this event and we hand out business cards and that's networking. That's not networking. That's not networking in the information age. In the information age, which we are well into, networking is establishing contact information and threaded conversations over periods of time with individuals and groups of individuals such that at any point in time, you can pick up that thread. And so now that person, I can write to my classmate or any of my classmates from business school, and they will respond pretty quickly. Might not be instantaneously, but the example I gave you was literally networking, bringing people into my network, people I might want to have in there. And that happened literally from a Facebook post this morning, and by it was before even noon. I think by 11:30 I was done talking. In the span of maybe an hour and a half, I'd added someone to my network who does something similar to what I do. He actually is a very successful real estate professional. And we're going to talk again later in the month. I told him, Ned, I'll write to you and we'll pick it up. I'll come by and visit. I want to see your place and talk some more. And I shared a couple of my startup ideas with him because I always bounce them off of people. I think part of your question was, who do you talk to? Who do you share it with? Always share your ideas. People don't steal ideas. They're so hard to begin with. The likelihood someone's going to take it from you and run with it is just, it's not going to happen. I haven't seen it happen because it's just hard to take an idea from someone and know all the things in their head that they never wrote down or still can't articulate and run with that idea. And quite frankly, when I have students who say that to me, I ask them, in Metro West, how many pizza parlors and pizza joints are there? How many auto bodies and garages are there? Okay, you don't have to be the only one to be successful. And quite frankly, if there's another one or two, that's actually a good sign. The likelihood someone who heard from you and tries it is in no better position to be successful than you are. You both have a lot of work to do. So, hey, get to the task and stop worrying about things outside of your control. Good question. I like that one. Thank you.
I don't have any more, and we're basically out of time. You survived, Mark, the AMA with your.
I'm glad. This is fun. I sincerely hope, and for all of you who may watch this later and see it as a stream or as a recording, these are fun things that we are doing with the alumni office at Framingham State. I enjoy them tremendously. This is kind of fun. I enjoy just the AMA aspect of it. I appreciate Jennifer and Michael setting this up. We're always noodling on new ideas and new topics. So stay tuned, Jennifer, right? Stay tuned.
I always love your ideas, Mark. And I will share with everyone that I have been embracing this idea of yes. So I'm open. So definitely.
Cool.
Good stuff. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
So everyone in Facebook world, have a great night. Thank you again, Mark, for joining us. Thanks for joining us, Juan.
Juan.
I'm going to guess you can thumbs up or thumbs down. Are you in Puerto Rico, Juan? He is. So, yes.
I heard the birds in the background.
Mike and I will be happy to see all of you guys very, very soon at our next event. So good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Night.